Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Inside the Lines podcast, hosted by myself, Gabe, and my co host, Max. A little PSA before we get started this week. We had a corruption with our audio in the first version of this podcast, so this is actually our second time recording this week. And due to that, we're going to try to keep it a little bit shorter, probably 30, 45 minutes at the most. But yeah, without further ado, we're going to get it started with some scores of week 9, followed by our picks for game of the week, and then we'll move on to college football and the rankings.
A good week of football. A lot to talk about. I'm excited. Starting off 45, we have Falcons 27, Saints 25, Broncos 30, Dem Boys 16, Patriots 24, Panthers 6, Vikings 31, Ravens 34, Browns 41, Bengals 16, Bills 6, Jaguars 9, Texans 9, Dolphins 17.
And then to wrap up, we had the Raiders with 16 and the Giants with 23, Chargers over the Eagles 27-24, the Chiefs over the Packers 13-7, and then the Cardinals, an injured Cardinals team, over the San Francisco 49ers 31-17, and then the Titans over the Rams 28-16, and then on Monday night we had the Refs 29 over the Bears with 27.
Yep. We're going to hit on that last game later, but starting off with the Thursday night game, we have Colts and Jets. A pretty good performance by the Colts at home on Thursday night.
The Colts offense, you mean?
The Colts offense, yeah. Josh Johnson does not need to be scoring 30 points on any defense.
Yeah, he threw for like 300 yards, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, especially for a team that has playoff aspirations. The Colts aren't the Dolphins. They're not the Texans. They're not the Lions. But this offense is going to have to carry this Colts team. I think that's what we learned.
And they really have for the past couple weeks, honestly.
Yeah, especially with some of the tough teams coming up on the Colts schedule. I know they have the Cardinals, the Bills, the Buccaneers, the Chiefs. They have a tough slate of games, and it's going to be very difficult for them to maintain this kind of success if the defense doesn't start playing well.
Yeah, I would agree. Another huge night out of Jonathan Taylor. He's emerging as one of the top 3 running backs in the league for sure. Maybe top 2, you could argue. I mean, heck, you could even argue that he's the best active running back in the league right now, which I know Max would argue that, but I think the Jets will win maybe 1 or 2 more games this year. Depends on if Mike White comes back, which I think he's going to.
Yeah.
All jokes aside, he played well when he was playing against the Colts, and he played well in that win over the Bengals.
Robert Saleh said Mike White is getting the start this week.
All right. That's good news for the Jets then. There's not a whole lot of good news that ever come from the Jets, but
yeah, I think they may have found the right coach, though. So they could be pointed in a positive direction, and I'm happy for Jets fans everywhere if they have a little bit of hope.
Yeah. Adam Gase was not great, so it's good to see that he was finally out of there.
Yeah, not great is certainly one way to put it.
That's probably the nicest way to put it, is not great.
Yeah. Moving on, we have the Titans and the Rams. Really surprising to some on Sunday night. The Rams getting dominated by the Titans, at least through about 3 quarters. I know they put up some points late, but they never really had a chance in this game. Both teams at 7-2 now. The Titans' first appearance without Derrick Henry. They've impressed. You could definitely make an argument they're the best team in the AFC or the NFL, maybe. I don't know. Von Miller, I don't think played in this game, but I don't think he makes a 12-point difference. I'd say you would probably agree with that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. A little bit of information that actually came out today is that the Rams signed Odell Beckham Jr., which is a little interesting that they're just kind of throwing around all the money. They are for sure all in this year.
Oh, absolutely.
And they are
up this year.
They're up the creek if they don't win it in this year or next year.
Absolutely. But I would say they have a pretty good shot at it.
They really do. They just keep
Especially
adding some studs.
some players in their prime: Cooper Cup, Aaron, Jalen Ramsey. Those guys are the best of the best. Stafford, I'm kind of rooting for Matt Stafford. I think he deserves it, but especially for putting up with the Lions for however many years he did. Yeah, he's a stud. They got a bunch of studs. They'll bounce back from this. They'll be all right. The Titans put themselves in good position to go for that 1 seed. Even without Derrick Henry, a lot of people thought they'd fall off, including, but with this win, it's kind of hard to say anything about them.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this will be
All
a
right.
big week again for them this coming week when they play the Saints. I know the Saints are a little banged up, but they could definitely make a push
Yeah,
for that
absolutely.
1 seed, like what you said.
Yep.
I'm fine.
All right. Moving on, we have the Chargers beating the Eagles by 3. This was a very important game for the Chargers to win, to stay alive, or not really stay alive, but keep ahead in the AFC West competition. You could argue there's 4 above average teams in the AFC West, and not a lot of divisions can say that. Actually, probably no divisions can say that. The Eagles continue to put up good fights against teams. I know they blew out the Lions a couple weeks back, or maybe last week, but at 3-6, they're not really in a position to do anything. But considering they're in a rebuilding year, if they ended up winning like 8, 9 games, I would say this is a successful season for them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the NFC East, you're always in a position to maybe do something.
Yeah, the NFC least is the gift that keeps on giving for some of these teams.
Yeah.
Moving on, we have some of your games of the week, starting with the Vikings and Ravens, and I'll let you begin.
All right. Yep. We had the Vikings 31 under the Ravens that scored 34 points. This was a game that we saw the Vikings lead most of the time, maybe or even into the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. And then that fourth quarter magic from Lamar Jackson just keeps coming back. So he was able to get it done for them. They had to kick a game-winning field goal with Justin Tucker, the best kicker in the league. So it was a very close game down to the end. I just don't know about these Vikings. I see a lot of people on social media still believe that they're an above average team and that they'll get it figured out, but I don't know if they'll get it figured out until they fire their head coach. I believe his name's Mike Zimmer.
Yep.
Yeah, I just think it's about his time to leave. It might be the same way with Kirk Cousins, to be honest, because they've got so much young talent on that team. Maybe not young talent, but talent. And it's just, I feel like they disappoint, in my opinion.
Yeah. You would definitely think that if you look at that roster, you'd think they have more than 3 wins.
Yeah.
I've also seen some statistics. They are first in the league in sacks allowed, so they have the least amount of sacks allowed, and they're first in sacks. So stuff like that, they really have no excuses to be 3-5 with the talent they have. The Ravens at 6-2 have also put themselves in a really good spot to push for that first seed. I know that with the new changes to the playoffs, the first seed is the only one that gets a bye. And Lamar Jackson's kind of tearing down some stereotypes about him, like how he can't come back in the fourth quarter. He's put 2 fourth quarter comebacks together now, one against the Colts, a very impressive one against the Colts, and now one against the Vikings. He's impressed me so far this season.
Yeah, he really has. I think one thing that I'd like to see him clean up from his game just a little bit is that I feel like he kind of fumbles around in the pocket sometimes, like not really sure where he wants to go with the ball. I mean, that's not all the time. You just see it at the end of games where he kind of, I mean, for example, in week 1, or maybe it was week 2, the Raiders game where he fumbled the ball 2 times and it pretty much cost him the game. And I know for sure he's fumbled on a couple more occasions, so I'd like to see him clean that up. But besides that, he's been lights out this year.
Yeah, I think the type of player he is, like how crazy and explosive he is, you're going to have to live with plays like that. I think if he starts trying to protect that ball and being a little bit more careful, he's not going to be the same explosive guy. So in my opinion, I think that's just something they're gonna have to live with.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd probably have to agree on that. All right, moving on for my next pick, it would be the Chiefs over the Packers 13-7 at Arrowhead Stadium. This was a rough showing for the Packers. I mean, the Chiefs are not great. That offense is good, but the defense is not that great at all. I saw a stat. I can't think of the exact percentage, but I know the Chiefs blitzed Jordan Love on over half of his attempts. So he was under pressure all night, and you could tell it really got to him. Lots of inaccurate throws from Jordan Love. He really looked like the other 5 rookie quarterbacks out there, which is kind of concerning considering he's set for a whole year behind Aaron Rodgers and had more time than those other rookie quarterbacks to learn the offense and everything. But he looked confident still. I think he'll be a decent quarterback in the NFL. It's just too early to tell yet.
Yeah, I also think he'll be all right in the long run, but he's got a lot to live up to. I mean,
He
the
does.
Packers have went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers and now Jordan Love, and that's not going to be a seamless transition there. Also, I think the Packers win this game easily if Aaron Rodgers plays. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers puts up more than 13 points.
Yeah, I would agree. And the Chiefs really didn't look great to me.
No, they
Against that
didn't.
Packers defense, I would expect them to put up more than 13 points,
Yep.
especially at Jordan Love, where you're getting the ball back. They're going 3-and-out. You got to put up more than 13 points. And if you're going to beat playoff teams in the future, you're going to have to put up more than 13 points.
Yeah. We're still waiting on that big statement win from the Chiefs, honestly. Because if the Packers had Aaron
Absolutely.
Rodgers and they beat the Packers with Aaron Rodgers, then that's kind of their statement win to kind of put people on notice that they're still a contender. But sitting at 5-4, I really do not think they'll make the playoffs. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I could definitely see him missing it.
But on the other hand, you could still see them making it because of that explosive offense, and they can go for 50 points any given game. So
Yeah, that defense for sure is not carrying them to the playoffs. Daniel Sorensen is not going to be the reason that team makes the playoffs.
no. All right. So my last pick
Um,
for game of the week. Oh, were you done with that? Or
Yeah.
did you have something else? Okay. All right. My last pick for game of the week was the refs 29 and the Bears 27. Not a great showing from the refs, but they were able to get some things done late in the game to push them over the edge. And I thought the Bears looked better. Justin Fields had a lot better week. You can tell he's learning and developing. He's not holding the ball as long. He's kind of trusting his arm a little bit more, but he can still get it done on the ground. When he's playing, he looks like one of the fastest people on the field. And I think that his future is bright. A little interesting note from this game is that Matt Nagy was not there due to COVID. And this is just a trend that is developing, is that when Matt Nagy is not there, or when Matt Nagy does not have the play calling duty, which for those of you that don't know, Matt Nagy is the Bears head coach, but when he does not call the plays, they score more points. I just think that's a little interesting.
yeah. Yeah, definitely an impressive showing from the refs. I know they had a few good 15-yard chunks late in that game, some really good pickups. But on to the Bears. I think it's pretty safe to say everybody's getting fired.
Yeah.
I mean,
Unless they win
Pace
out.
is going. Yeah,
But no,
Pace is going. Nagy's going. And hopefully Fields gets a new offensive coordinator and head coach that he feels comfortable with and that he can grow with. Because I do think, as far as potential, I don't know if there's anybody in this draft class who has more potential.
yeah, I don't know either. I think with a good head coach and a good quarterback coach and offensive coordinator behind Justin Fields working with him, he can become a top 10 quarterback in the league. Maybe even
Yeah, I
better
would
than
agree.
that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
But all jokes
Um,
aside, I mean, the Steelers played good enough to win. They're at 5-3. I feel like no matter how bad people think the Steelers are, Mike Tomlin just always pushes them over the edge. He hasn't had a losing game a losing season in a very long time.
Yep.
So
I
I
would say
think,
he's definitely a top 3 coach in the NFL.
yeah, I would agree. He finds a way to win, which is something that not a lot of coaches are able to do.
Yep. Moving on, one quick point I wanted to hit on is how about them Cowboys?
You know, Max, here's something that I find a little interesting is that you call them boys only when they lose. You notice that?
I've said on this podcast before, I am a self-proclaimed Cowboys hater. I don't hide it.
Okay. Well, the Cowboys didn't show up until the fourth quarter. I think the Broncos were winning like 27 or 28 to nothing at this point. The defense, it was just, they were on the field for a very long time. The defense was, and that offense just couldn't get the ball. And then when the offense did get the ball, they didn't perform. I think both Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb not having great days. Zeke
Yeah,
did not
honestly,
have a very impressive day. Dak himself didn't have a great day. He said after the game that his calf injury did not hold him back at all, but he didn't look like himself out there.
no, he didn't. And on a more serious note from me, I think the Cowboys will be fine from this game. They're still going to win the AFC or the NFC East because it sucks, and they're going to be in the playoffs, and they're going to play a home playoff game. I don't think anyone's really disputing that right now. I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to win at least a playoff game. I know I am a Cowboys hater, but if I'm being honest, I am very high on this team, and I think it's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, they do. They have beat some pretty good teams this year, and they played the Buccaneers close in week 1. And we talked about it before. The Cowboys are good. They can afford to lose games like this. And over to the other side of the ball, this is a pretty impressive game from the Broncos, even though the Cowboys didn't really show up. This Broncos team is hanging around in the AFC. There's a lot of teams in the AFC that are right around that 500 mark, about 5-4, 4-5, that area. So, I mean, really anything could happen in the AFC at this point. And the Broncos are keeping themselves in the mix.
Yeah, the AFC definitely keeps me guessing every week.
Yeah, their games, the AFC games are very hard to pick because I think everybody's been beating everybody this year.
Yep, absolutely. So, moving on to our next topic. This is one you're very passionate about. I don't know as much about this as you, but I would like to move on to the college football playoffs. I'll let you begin with your take.
Okay, to get us started on this, I'll just list the rankings for this week's playoff this week's playoff rankings. You have Georgia at 1. That's to be expected. They're 9-0. Their defense is giving up like a field goal a game or something stupid like that. Alabama at number 2. That's could be debated, but Alabama's great. Oregon at 3. Ohio State at 4. Cincinnati just outside the top 4 at 5. Michigan at 6, Michigan State at 7, Oklahoma at 8, Notre Dame at 9, Oklahoma State at 10, A&M, Texas A&M at 11, and then the rest of them don't really matter as much. But honestly, I think these rankings are an upgrade from last week's. I think this top 4 is fair. I would really like to see Cincinnati. They're undefeated. They have the best win on their schedule out of any of these top teams, and going into Notre Dame and beating Notre Dame at home. In like the last 10 or 15 years, I believe, Notre Dame has only lost 2 home games. And one of those home games was to Cincinnati by double digits this year. So that's the most impressive win by any of these teams in the top 10. So I
Well,
really think
Oregon
they
beating
deserve
Ohio
to be
State.
higher. Well, yeah, Oregon. Okay, you're right. Oregon did beat Ohio State, so that is a more impressive win. But that
Yeah,
aside,
right behind it. Yeah, right behind that is the Cincinnati win over Notre Dame. I don't think any of these other teams have beat a top 10 opponent, if I'm correct.
well, looking at it, Michigan State actually did beat Michigan, but this is where it gets a little weird. Michigan is ranked above Michigan State at 6, and Michigan State's at 7. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because there's just some inconsistencies in this ranking, I feel like.
Yeah, it's certainly an odd ranking. I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of it. I would personally have Cincinnati over Ohio State. I believe you would too.
I would as
Would
well.
would you?
But
Okay.
here's where things get a
And
little
I think
bit weird is that Ohio State lost to Oregon, but Oregon's loss is to an unranked Stanford team, which they were unranked at the time with a losing record, and they're still unranked and they still have a losing record. It was a bad loss for them. And so you look at it, but Ohio State's only loss is to a number 3 Oregon, and they've been blowing some teams out. So you think you might be able to put Ohio State above Oregon, but then it comes back to Oregon beat Ohio State, so you can't put them above them. So that's kind of where the anomaly comes in.
yeah, in my opinion, this doesn't really have anything to do with these current rankings. In my opinion, the rankings should be more about about your wins than your losses. Because I think your wins kind of show what your potential is, like what you're capable of. Your
Especially if you're
losses,
only
okay,
a one-loss team.
it's hard to win every game. It's hard to win every game, even if you're getting beat by a bad team. Like Alabama's getting beat by Texas A&M. Texas A&M's not great. Alabama is. You just have those games sometimes. Oregon getting beat by an unranked school, you're going to have that sometimes. But Cincinnati's 9-0. And they, in my opinion, there's no excuse to keep them out of this top four.
I have to
Especially
agree.
because they have a higher quality win than Ohio State. They have a higher quality win than Alabama, and they have no losses.
Yeah.
Yep, I think that's just what it boils down to is that they have the better win and they have no losses. So therefore I don't see how you can keep them out of the top four. I kind of after this week I kind of agree with Michigan being over Michigan State. Well, tell you what, no, I don't, because Michigan State got beat by Purdue. Purdue just seems to do this. Purdue
They
is
only
the
play
Grim
good
Reaper.
against top 10 teams somehow.
Yeah, Purdue's like the Grim Reaper of the Big Ten. I hate to see what they're going to do to Ohio State soon, but I'm actually kind of rooting for them now. But
Wait, so you
yeah,
think
other than
Michigan
that,
is going to beat Ohio State?
I think they could. I think Michigan's a really good football team.
I agree. I think this might be one of the better Michigan Ohio State games in a
Yeah,
while
I would
because
be surprised if this is a blowout.
yeah, it's not going to be a blowout. I think Ohio State has won like the last 8 matchups with Michigan. So if Michigan wants to beat them, this year would be the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm to go down a little bit further on the rankings. I'm not an Oklahoma fan by any means, but having them all the way down at 8 is a little questionable to me because they are undefeated and all the points that we've been talking about with Cincinnati, if we want to be fair, then those points should also apply to Oklahoma. And Oklahoma hasn't lost a game this year. They've had some dodgy wins, I will admit. They almost got beat by Kansas, for goodness sakes. But at the end of the day, they're still 9-0, and I think they should be above some of these one-loss teams.
Yeah, I could definitely see where you're coming from there. My only problem with that is they don't have a quality win. But their schedule prohibits them from having one.
Yeah, I would agree. So,
Yeah.
Max, I have a question for you now. If you were to go ahead and list me your top 6 from 6 to 5 to 4, 3, 2, 1, if you want to.
Starting at 6.
Yeah, start at 6.
At 6, I would have Michigan State. At 5, I would have Ohio State. At 3, I would have. Wait, no. At 4, I would have Oregon. At 3, I would have Alabama. At 2, I would have Cincinnati. And at 1, I would have Georgia.
Yeah, I think those are pretty solid. You kind of want to elaborate a little bit?
Yeah. So my thoughts behind Oregon is they do have a better win than Cincinnati. So I could definitely see how some people want to put them above that, and I mean I would respect that. That's fine. But Cincinnati does not have that loss. So Cincinnati's 9-0, and they have a win that's not that much worse than Oregon's win. But with Bama, they don't have a win as good as Cincinnati. Okay, can I redo mine? Can I start at 3 again?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, well, let me start at 4, actually. At number 4, I have Alabama. At number 3, I have Oregon, and at number 5, at number 2, I have Cincinnati. Because out of those top 4 that I just listed, Bama, Oregon, Georgia, and Cincinnati, Alabama has a loss, which is the same as Oregon, but their win is not as good as Oregon's, so I would put them at 4.
Yeah, I would.
I know that was kind of confusing, but do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think that's definitely a fair ranking. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead with mine.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so my number 6 team is going to be Oklahoma. My number 5 team, so the first team out would be Ohio State. And then at number 4, I have Oregon. Number 2, I have Alabama. Or number 3, I have Alabama, my bad. 2, Cincinnati. 1, Georgia. And to explain mine a little bit, so one thing that you might notice is that Michigan and Michigan State both are outside my top 6. Michigan State has that loss to Purdue, but they do have that better win. But they did beat Michigan. And then Michigan lost to Michigan State, but they're still a great team. But I think a no-loss Oklahoma gets ranked over a 1-loss Michigan and a 1-loss Michigan State. And then my first team out is Ohio State because they lost to Oregon. And they really don't have a quality win yet. I think with the loss that Penn State suffered, Penn State isn't even, they don't have a ranked win. Ohio State. So they're just out of my top 4. And then at number 4,
Can I ask,
okay, yeah, go ahead.
can I ask you what, like, not necessarily what you think should happen. What do you think will happen? What teams do you think will get in?
Okay, I'll come back to that after. I kind of want to finish up my rankings real quick. So at 4,
Okay.
then I have Oregon, 3, Alabama, and then 2, Cincinnati, number 1, Georgia. And then my thoughts behind that is kind of similar to what you said. Alabama doesn't really have a super impressive win yet. They do have some games coming up that they could kind of make that statement. But they're still a really good team, and their 1 loss is to an A&M, which A&M is now ranked 11, which you could argue that the only reason A&M is 11 is to make Alabama's only loss look better, because Alabama brings in a lot of money when they put them in the top 4.
Oh, yeah.
So I had Alabama at 3, and then Cincinnati at 2, Georgia at 1. This kind of goes with what you said, except I am more looking at who teams lost against rather than who they beat. I guess it's a healthy mixture of both. But yeah, I think that those top 2 are, in my opinion, undisputed. Cincinnati hadn't lost a game. They have a good win at Notre Dame. And then we both know, Georgia is the undisputed number 1 team. They've been holding teams to
Georgia,
barely any points at all.
Georgia doesn't even have a super great win, but the way they've been dominating these teams with their defense is enough for me to put them number 1.
Yeah, I would agree. There's really, until Georgia loses, which at this point, Georgia could lose to Alabama in the SEC championship, and I think they still get in, to be honest.
I agree. I also think they still both get in if they. I think they will, but I don't necessarily think Alabama should get in. Wait, no. If Georgia beats Alabama, I don't think Alabama should get in. But if Alabama beats Georgia, I think they both make it.
I could agree. Here's kind of a scenario that is not really that unrealistic that could play out. So Georgia, let's just say Georgia wins out, right? So they beat Alabama. Alabama then has 2 losses. And my opinion is the same as yours. They're out. Oregon wins the rest of their games, wins the Pac-12, so they're in. Cincinnati, I sure hope, is going to win the rest of their games, so they're in. And then Ohio State wins against Michigan and then wins the Big Ten, so they're in. I think that is going to be how it ends up. That's my That's what I think.
Yeah, that's pretty realistic. I could definitely see that happening. That'd be a really interesting scenario, I think, because, I mean, I find it hard to believe that the committee would rank Alabama out of the top four, but I think they'd have to.
That's what I'm saying. I really, with all these other 1 and 2 loss teams, and that scenario is not even including Oklahoma, which there's a good chance Oklahoma wins out, and then where are they put at? So I don't really know. I think it's not super unrealistic to see Alabama ranked all the way down at 6 behind Oklahoma if Oklahoma wins out.
Yeah, the committee has a tough job to do.
They
They
do.
have a lot of people, and they can't please everybody. But
And a lot of people give them
yeah,
crap,
they,
me included. But when it comes down to it, a set in stone way to rank these teams. Like me and you both have very similar opinions on this stuff, and me and our rankings differed a little bit. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, that's really all I got on college football. If you're about finished on it.
yeah, I'm done. I say we go ahead and talk about the week 11 schedule.
All right. So for week 10 here, we
Week
have,
11.
No.
Hold up. Wait, okay, no, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. My bad.
Yeah, you're right.
Forget I even said
so
anything.
I'm gonna pick one game, and then you can pick a game, then I'll pick a game, and you can pick a game to avoid taking each other's games here. So for my first game of the week, I am going to choose Saints and Titans.
So you think that'll be a pretty good game?
I do. I think that'll be a really good game. I think the Saints have a chance to really identify themselves, especially without their quarterback, Jameis Winston. They got Trevor Siemian started. But this could be a really impressive win that could really propel the Saints into making the playoffs, I think. Also, the Titans have to lose a game sooner or later. Well, I guess they don't have to, but they probably will. I think this would be one for them to lose. It doesn't really matter in the standings because they're an NFC team, so they won't lose any tiebreakers for it. And I don't know. It's a home game for them, so I guess I could definitely see them winning it. Do you have any thoughts on this game?
I do not.
All right.
Okay, so my first and the Jets, which before you attack me about this, the Bills just got beat by the Jaguars, and in my opinion, they've looked a little bit fraudulent. And the Jets are going to have Mike White, Jesus himself. So I think this is going to be a good game. I bet the Bills win it, but it's going to be close. That's really all I have for that. I think it's going to be a good game.
Yeah. I don't know how many people this year have included the Jets in a game of the week, but I respect it. I could definitely see the Bills losing this game. They have looked a little bit fraudulent this year. They've lost to some not great teams, including the Steelers and the Jaguars last week. The Jaguars just an ugly loss.
Yeah, that is. That game was just ugly all around.
Yeah, it was. It was a real a barn burner, 6-9. That's just not a fun game to watch. But the Jets, yeah, I mean, you said Mike White coming back, the reincarnation of Jesus.
The second coming of Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I don't have a ton of takes on this game. If I had to pick a winner, I'd probably pick the Bills. But
the Bills is definitely the safer option, but the Jets aren't out of it.
Would you feel comfortable saying this is the Bills' game to lose?
I would agree. I'd have to agree with that.
Okay.
I think the Bills are the Bills. I feel like are going to be playing not to lose rather than to win.
All right. So if you're ready, I'd like to make my pick.
Yep, go for it.
The next game. I'm gonna pick the Seahawks and Packers. I think will be a very interesting game with Russell Wilson coming back, Aaron Rodgers coming back. It could be quite the duel. It's a 3:25 game on Central Time. Hopefully, it's America's game of the week. I think it's gonna be a really good game.
Yeah, two quarterbacks that are some of the best of their generation, and
Yep.
I think that we could see this turn into a shootout. I think it'll be interesting to see how limited Russell Wilson is coming off that gruesome injury to his finger. I feel like he'll be all right, but that's something to monitor maybe. And my next pick for game of the week would have to be the Browns at Foxborough playing the Patriots. I think that's going to be a really good game. The Patriots are kind of hot as of recent. They've been stringing some games together that Mac Jones is playing good enough for them to win. He's probably been playing the best out of all the rookie quarterbacks. He doesn't really take much shots downfield, but he's been accurate at close range, so he's been playing better. The Browns got fresh off a big win against the Bengals. They've been playing better as well. It'll be interesting to see Baker up against this Patriots defense. They're very well coached, obviously. So, yeah. You got any thoughts?
Yeah, both these teams are above average football teams hoping to make a shot at the playoffs. I think, in my opinion, I think the Browns probably pull this one out, but it'll be interesting to see how the edge rushers choose to treat Mac Jones this week after his dirty play on Brian Burns. Did you see that?
I did see that. He grabbed his ankle and twisted it after did he fumble it or did he throw an interception? It was some sort of turnover. I believe.
I think he fumbled it, but I'm not sure. I just saw the video of him twisting the ankle. But I mean, he wished happy hunting for the other edge rushers in the NFL, which
yeah, he did. And
you
he's
never
going
know.
up against arguably the best one in Myles Garrett, and Jadeveon Clowney is really nobody to mess with either.
No, absolutely not. You never know when Myles Garrett's going to take your helmet off and beat you with it.
You never know, do you?
Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee.
The man himself, quarterback graveyard, quarterback Grim Reaper. Did you see that when he showed up on Halloween as a Grim Reaper with all the quarterbacks he sacked?
Yeah, that's awesome. I saw something like what was that edge rusher? His last name was like White, I think. Played for Reggie White, I think, had a graveyard similar to Myles Garrett's, but it was like there was like 60 different quarterbacks. It was insane. But I think he leads the NFL all time in sacks. And Myles Garrett certainly has the potential to be there one day. But the Browns are going to have to rely heavily on their run game to beat the Patriots. They can't let the Patriots just matriculate the ball down the field.
Yeah, the Browns definitely need to control the ball, control the clock to win this game.
Yeah, they need to dominate time of possession, and they can't put the ball in Baker's hands. Baker's not going to win them a lot of football games by himself. He's just not that guy. He's not Mahomes.
Won't.
He's not Josh Allen. He's not
a top.
He's not one
15
of those
quarterback
Carson Wentz type quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit Colts bias, but go ahead.
But I do think the Patriots, if they can win this game, put themselves in a really good spot for possibly the division the way the Bills have been playing.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. In my opinion, this is just going to be probably a pretty low-scoring game. The Browns, like what you said, need to control the ball with D'Ernest Johnson and that great offensive line of theirs.
Nick Chubb, too.
Is Nick Chubb playing this week? I think he has COVID, right?
Oh, does he have COVID? I do remember seeing that.
Because
he recovered from his injury, though, right?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he did.
Okay.
And I believe he's vaccinated as well, so he's not going to be out for too long. But
so I believe the policy on that is 2 negative tests in a row
within the span of 24 hours, I think.
Yeah, then he can return, but we'll have to see if that happens or not.
Yeah, and we saw against the Broncos that D'Ernest Johnson is well capable of getting it done for him. Like, he's projected 18 fantasy points. So
yeah, I think at a podcast down the line, we're definitely going to talk about the use of running backs in today's NFL. I think that's a very good example of them.
Yeah, it really is. All right, so what's your last pick for Week 10?
For a game?
Yep.
I'm going to go Chiefs at Raiders on Sunday Night Football. I think the Chiefs at 5-4 and the Raiders at 5-3, this could be a really good football game, and this could decide a lot for the division down the road.
Yeah, I agree. These are two teams that I would say are pretty similar in the skill level.
Yeah, I think they each have different strengths. The Chiefs have a very talented offense, very high powered, and with the Raiders being more of a defensive team that kind of leans on their defense. I know Derek Carr is having a sneaky good year this year, but I think when you think of the Raiders, you think of hard nosed football.
Yeah, aggressiveness and just
Yeah,
good
even from the
defense.
fans.
Yeah, aggressiveness from the coaching staff, the players, the fans, the water boy, everybody.
Yeah, everybody in Vegas is crazy, man.
Yeah. That's really all I have about that game. I think it'll just be interesting to see how it goes.
Yep.
So my final
Same.
pick for game of the week is going to have to be the Vikings versus the Chargers at LA. The Chargers have struggled a little bit. If I'm not mistaken, they have like the worst graded run defense in the whole NFL. Or if it's not the worst, it's at the very least bottom 5. And the
Yeah.
Vikings have that good run game with Dalvin Cook, so we could see him go for a couple touchdowns. And this is an important game for the Vikings. I know we've been saying it for probably the last 3 weeks that if the Vikings want to make a statement win, then they have to do it now. But I really do believe this might be their last chance.
Yeah, I would agree.
And if the Vikings win this game, I think that kind of puts the Chargers in it.
Puts the Chargers in definitely not a favorable position because one of those other teams is going to be 6-3 or 6-4 in that AFC West. Because I mean the Raiders and the Chiefs are playing each other. We talked about that earlier.
Yep.
Moving on, I do want. I mean, I know we didn't plan this, but I would like to make a bold prediction for the week.
I am interested to hear what you have to say.
Hear it out. Hear me out here. I know we haven't talked a ton about my team here, but my bold prediction of the week is that Jonathan Taylor rushes for over 200. The Jaguars, he rushed for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think he's going to repeat that same success this week, and he's going to bring me home a W in fantasy football.
Yeah, I really don't even feel like that's that bold, honestly. Jonathan Taylor is a GOAT, and the Jags defense is, well, the Jaguars. But I could see that happening for sure. I think this is definitely a favorable matchup for him.
Yeah, definitely. Closing, it would really mean a lot to us if y'all would like and subscribe to our podcast. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm and helps get our stuff out there. On Twitter, you can follow us at capital ITL lowercase POD on Twitter. From there, you can find both of our personal Twitter accounts and
We
give us a
post
follow.
updates on there. We link our podcast on there, so that's where you can really find all of our content.
Yep, sometimes it can be difficult to find things in the depths of YouTube, so it's definitely easier if you'll just follow us on Twitter.
All right, that about wraps us up.
Yep. Thanks for listening, everybody.